Hi, in our previous lesson we have learned about the designing phase, designing algorithms, the flowcharts and the pseudocode. Pseudocodes was little bit English and looks like the programming language, and the flowcharts were the graphical representation of the solution of a problem. So in here we also learned about the introduction of the programming. C programming, it was a high level language created by Dennis Ritchie in the Bell's Laboratory 1972. And now we are going to learn about the C fundamentals. Fundamentals means the basic components of the programming language. Suppose we have a game, we have a software in our PC, a game. In there is a gun, there are the characters, there are the clothes of those characters, the color of the characters, the face, blacks, some of them are white. So the fundamentals is actually, it is the collection of things that a thing is made up of. So programming is made up of the fundamentals, certain fundamentals. We call them C fundamentals. So the basic elements of the C language are actually character set, identifiers, operators and expressions. These are the four basic things you need to know about to learn every programming language, not only C. In C++, Java, PHP, Python, or a lot of programming language like Perl, you need to learn the basic four things, that is character set, the identifiers, operators and expressions. So the characters are from A to Z, uppercase and lowercase A to Z. These are in computer programming language, uppercase A to Z and lowercase A to Z are completely different. Capital A and small a is never equal. So these build the two different things, capital A, uppercase A, lowercase a, these are the two different things. And digits, digits 0 to 9, special characters like equal to, percentage, comma, and a lot of all the special characters come into the category. So these are the fundamentals of C programming language. Not all the fundamentals, these are the character set, we call them the character set. What are the identifiers? Identifiers are the, like we have identity card. Identifiers are the names. These are the variables and the constants. What a variable and a constant is? We have identifiers, like we identify something by these things. We name something by these identifiers, then we identify them with the same name we are giving them. Like identifiers are the identifiers or like constants, the variables. Identifiers are the names given to various programming elements such as variables, constants and functions. Functions also, it should start with an alphabet followed by the combination of alphabets and digits. A variable, a function, a constant never can start with a digit or a special character without underscore. You can start it with underscore or alphabet, and you can name it later by a lot of things, like you can say sum two numbers. Examples are here. Valid identifier sum two numbers means this is a variable, and basic pay, another variable, amounts. So these are the valid identifiers. An identifier can only start, these are actually the rules, and variable can start with the alphabet, not with any special character, without underscore. It can also start with underscore but not any other character, special character, and it can start with an alphabet, not with a number, a digit. And invalid identifiers, like here is 5 subject, emp, name, and student, hash. So it is in the 5 subjects, 5 is started in the emp name, there is a space in between them, emp space name. So this space must not be there, it must not contain a space. And hash of student, so hash must not be there. So special characters, digits cannot be used to start an identifier and a variable, constant, function. And you can put a special character only underscore into between or in the beginning of it, and it cannot start with a digit. So but digits, it can include the digits in between the name. So what actually these variables, constants, functions are? Let's look at the variables. First, variables. A variable is an identifier that represents a value. We'll be looking at, we will do a certain practical examples today, and we will look what variable is and how we run our program. Variable is an identifier, so we identify something with it, right? What we identify, we identify the memory location with the variable. In the books you will find that the variable is a named memory location. It is not a named memory location, it is actually the name of that memory location we give to them. The memory location, whenever we declare a variable, it finds the first empty memory location, it gives it to that variable, and we put value into that variable, and the value is stored at the location. So variable actually refers to the memory locations where the value is stored. So when we have to use that memory location, we cannot remember the address of that memory location, we don't even know what the address is. So what we do is we use the variables to find the memory location, put all the values in there, so we can use these variables later for the further operations. The value represented by the identifier may change. So here the basic point, the basic difference between a variable and a constant is variables, the value of the variable can change during the execution, but the constants cannot change. Value of the constant can never change. Here is how we can declare a variable. Variable can be declared by the data type. What are the data types? We'll look at that a few seconds later. So it's the data type and the variable name. Here are the examples. Suppose general form is variable data type. What type of data type is this? Data types shows us what type of operations we can do on a variable, what type it is, what type of data it can store. Suppose we have integers and we have to store characters. You cannot store characters and digits in the same variable. You have to put a data type in the beginning of it, so that it can be defined as a number, it can be defined as a variable of characters. So initialization means where we can give the value to this where we can give value to this variable. We can initialize it at 2 times, since when we create it, so it is now a variable, and we can give it the value there. Like here, the data type variable name is equal to value, so it is a value of it is equal to value. Now the variable will contain the value, suppose 10, 12, anything, or a, b, it can be a character, it can be a digit. Data types. What the data types are? Data types are used to indicate the type of value represented or stored in a variable, the number of bytes to be reserved in memory. It is the most important point here, how much memory will be assigned to a variable. If it is an integer type, it depends. In the 64-bit computer it will take 4 bits, in the 32-bit computer it will take 2 bits. In the 32-bit it will take 2 bits. So memory varies. If it is a character, it will take only 1 bit. If it is integer, then it depends on the processor, like we said, 64 and 32. If it is float, it will take 4 bytes, either in 32 and 64-bit computer. But if it is double, means large floating numbers, there will be always, like we have integer is the small part of, like it has a limit. It has a limit of numbers. You cannot add, like we have calculator, and it is an 8-digit calculator, so you cannot enter the digit is more than 8. So in here, integer has a limit, you cannot enter the digits more than that number. Character stores a single character, like A, B, C, something like that. Floating point numbers. Here the numbers, floating point numbers, they are also integer type, but they are called floating. There must be a point dot between them. Double large float pointing numbers. So double means these are the large floating point numbers. Suppose float have a limit of 8 digits, but the double will have limit of 15 digits. That is the little bit difference in them. And then there comes the typical memory every data type takes. Int takes the 2 bytes, character takes 1 byte, float takes 4 bytes, double takes 8 bytes. But the integer depends on the processor, that I have already told you. Then there are these are all called the primary data types or fundamental data types, or we can say basic, primitive. So there are 4 names to them: primary, fundamental, basic, primitive data types. there is one more category in the data types. We call them derived data types. These are actually the combination of primitive data types. Suppose we have int and a character combination called the int and the character, its combination is called the derived data type. We derive the value, how much value it takes. Suppose we take integer, 4 memory locations for integer, 3 memory locations for float. So it depends on how much we take. So this is it. So derived data types is a combination actually of the primitive data types. Here are arrays, structures, unions, enumeration. Now there is one more thing, constants. We have discussed the variables. Now what are the constants? I told you the difference between the variables and the constants is variables value change always, but the constant remains the it remains the fixed during the execution of a program. There are two types of constants: symbolic constants, constant variables, also called read-only variables. So symbolic constants, these are the symbols. Suppose here symbolic constants, like we have pi and we define the max, it will be like a symbol. Like pi can be used, it has the defined value 3.14 and it will never change. It is a universal truth. The value of pi is 3.14 or 22/7. We create them like the variables. There is only one difference. We create here in the constant variables, we put a little bit keyword. We will look at keywords later, but here we put a keyword const, const. It makes it a constant, and integer means the data type of this variable, and size is the name of the variable, constant variable. These are the symbolic constants. We will meet in the next lecture. Thank you.